There's a quiet magic in small wins. Not the kind that makes headlines or earns applause, but the kind that happens quietly, the surface, where most people aren't looking. There's something deeply powerful about beginnings, not because they are loud or grand, because they hold quiet potential. Every great journey in history began in stillness, with a single, almost invisible act: writer placing a pen on a blank page, a musician pressing one key, a runner tying their shoes before dawn, a dreamer whispering, "Maybe I can." Chapter 1 is about that whisper, the first small win, the one that seems too small to matter but ends up changing everything. You see, most people overestimate what they can do in a short burst of effort and underestimate what they can achieve with steady, repeated motion. We live in a world that glorifies massive action and instant results, but real success, the kind that lasts, grows from small, consistent wins. Shouted builds. Think about the seed beneath the soil. For weeks, it does nothing visible. The surface looks unchanged, but beneath, roots are forming, tiny, delicate, determined. That's what small wins are like. At first, no one can see them, not even you. You go for a short walk, save a little money, you make one healthy meal choice, you study for 10 minutes, you read a few pages of a book. It doesn't feel like success, doesn't feel like progress, but it is. Each of these small actions repeated compounds in ways your eyes can't yet see. The hard part isn't doing them once. It's believing they matter when results don't yet appear. Modern mind has been conditioned to crave immediate feedback, to expect fireworks after every effort. But life doesn't work that way. Real transformation happens quietly. It begins with faith. Faith that small steps are enough. Faith that consistency beats intensity. Faith that who you're becoming matters more than what you achieve today. In the psychology of behavior, there's a concept called the compound effect. Simple but life-changing small, smart choices, consistently applied over time, equal radical difference. Imagine two people who start at the same point. One improves by just 1% a day, one small win after another. After a year, that person isn't 37 times better by accident. The math itself compounds the difference. The other person doesn't get worse overnight. Small neglects, skipping the gym, avoiding challenges, spending impulsively, they compound too. The difference between small wins and small losses is invisible at first, but over time, it defines destinies. The truth is, small wins work both ways, either compounding forward or backward. Every choice tilts the balance. And here's the beautiful part. No matter where you are right now, choose to tilt forward. Today, this moment, this breath. That's what Chapter 1 is about. Reclaiming the power of the small. Small is manageable. Small is sustainable. Small is how you build momentum when motivation fades. We often wait for perfect timing, ideal conditions, or a spark of inspiration before acting. But those moments are rare, and progress doesn't depend on them. Progress depends on motion, imperfect, sometimes clumsy, but steady motion. The most successful people in any field share this simple secret: they act before they feel ready. They start small, they stay consistent, and they let time multiply their effort. Let's take an example from nature. Bamboo plant is one of the most fascinating metaphors for small wins. When you plant bamboo, nothing happens for years. You water it, nurture it, protect it, and for 5 years, it barely breaks the ground. People may even laugh, saying you're wasting your time. But one day suddenly, it's up, growing over 80 feet in just 6 weeks. Did it really grow in 6 weeks? No. It grew in 5 years and 6 weeks. Because during those invisible years, it was growing underground, developing roots strong enough to support what was coming. Small wins work the same way. They're not wasted effort, they're root work. Every time you show up, every time you choose discipline over distraction, every time you move 1 inch closer, you are strengthening your roots for future growth. Here's the catch. You must keep watering even when you see no results. Most people stop too soon. They give up during the invisible years, confuse stillness with failure. But growth often hides in silence. The first sign of progress is usually invisible. It's internal, the shift in mindset that whispers, "I can keep going." That's why small wins matter so much. They are proof of movement. Movement builds belief. You can't think your way into confidence, you act your way into it. Every small win says to your brain, "I'm someone who follows through." And when your brain believes that, everything changes. Suddenly habits stick. Motivation returns. You start to crave the process instead of the outcome. This shift, from outcome obsession to process devotion, is the foundation of real success. When you focus on small wins, you remove pressure. You stop needing perfection, and you start valuing consistency. You understand that missing one day isn't failure. It's just a part of being human. The power is in returning. Because returning is also a small win. Come back. Every restart, every "I'll try again tomorrow" counts. The world celebrates the finish line, but what matters most is the next step, the next, and the next. Think of how water shapes rock. Not with force but with persistence. Drip by drip, moment by moment, it carves through stone. That's what your effort does when you stay patient. Every day you act, even in tiny ways, you're reshaping your future. The secret is, you don't have to feel inspired every day. You just have to stay in motion. Discipline is simply devotion repeated. When you start viewing small wins as victories rather than obligations, the entire process transforms. Instead of asking, "How far do I have to go?" you start asking, "What can I do right now?" That one question unlocks momentum. In this first chapter, I want you to remember one phrase: small wins compound. They build momentum, confidence, and resilience. Each one makes the next one easier. When you keep showing up for yourself in small ways, you create evidence that you're capable. And that evidence rewires your mind. Suddenly, the big goal that once scared you becomes manageable because you've proven to yourself, again and again, that you can move forward. Climb doesn't get easier. You just get stronger. So as you move through this chapter, let go of the idea that success must be dramatic. Transformation is often subtle. It's built in quiet moments when no one's watching. When you keep your word to yourself, of those moments matters. The world might not see your progress yet, but it's there taking root beneath the surface, waiting for the right time to bloom. You don't need to rush it. You don't need to force it. You just need to keep going, one small win at a time. Those small wins will compound. They always do. And one day, when you look back, you'll see how far you've come, not from a single leap, but from 1,000 small steps that each whispered the same truth: keep moving. Momentum begins quietly, often without celebration or recognition, like a whisper that grows into a rhythm before anyone else notices it. It doesn't start with fireworks or sudden breakthroughs, begins with something small, a decision, a repetition, a choice made when no one's watching. The power of small wins isn't just that they happen, it's that they build something bigger underneath. a current of momentum that starts to pull you forward, even when you're tired, distracted, uncertain. Momentum is invisible at first. It doesn't announce itself. It hides in the daily repetitions, in the invisible victories, the consistent choices that slowly begin to compound. One day, you wake up, and something has shifted. What once felt heavy now feels manageable. What once felt impossible now feels within reach. You're no longer pushing against the process. The process is pulling you. That's the quiet power of momentum, and it's one of the most underestimated forces in human growth. People often talk about motivation. It's the key to success. But motivation is a spark, momentum is the fire. Motivation gets you started, but momentum keeps you moving long after the initial excitement fades. Motivation depends on emotion, momentum depends on motion. When you act, when you don't feel like it, you create friction. And friction is how the wheel begins to turn. The difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck is rarely talent or luck. It's whether they keep moving when progress feels slow. Small wins are the ignition, and repetition is the fuel. You see, every small win feeds your belief that movement is possible, and belief multiplies action. This is how compounding begins to accelerate, not in numbers, but in confidence. When you take one small step, brain gets evidence that you can make progress. That evidence changes how you see yourself, and suddenly, you begin to act like someone who moves forward. And when you act that way, you create more evidence, which strengthens your belief even more. That's how momentum builds. One choice at a time, one repetition layered upon the last, each one whispering, "Keep going." You don't have to sprint, just have to stay in motion. Think of a flywheel, a massive steel wheel that takes incredible force to move. At first, it resists. It barely budges. Push and strain, and it feels like nothing is happening. But with every push, it turns a little more easily. The more it turns, the more energy it stores. Eventually, it spins on its own, powered by the momentum of your earlier efforts. That's what happens when small wins compound. You go from effort to energy, from forcing to flowing. You stop relying on willpower because momentum starts working for you instead of against you. Most people quit before the wheel spins freely. They give up in the early pushes when it feels like nothing is changing. But the truth is, change was already happening. It just hadn't become visible yet. The early stages of any transformation are the hardest because the results lag behind the effort. You're planting seeds, not harvesting fruit. Those seeds, watered with consistency, eventually bloom. Momentum also changes your relationship with failure. When you're stuck, a setback feels like a dead end. But when you have momentum, a setback is just a slowdown. You don't panic, you adjust. You don't give up, recalibrate. That's the gift of consistent small wins. They make you resilient. You no longer measure your worth by today's results, by your willingness to keep showing up. You begin to see effort as success. Because here's the truth in the compounding journey, the hardest part isn't getting it right, it's not stopping when it goes wrong. Momentum rewards those who stay in motion, not those who stay perfect. There's a myth that momentum belongs only to the talented or the lucky, but that's not true. Momentum belongs to the consistent. It doesn't care how fast you start, it cares how often you return. Even a single action, done repeatedly, begins to shape your identity. You write one sentence a day, you're a writer. If you walk 10 minutes a day, you're active. If you save a few coins daily, you're a saver. The identity shift happens long before the result shows up. That's how small wins quietly change who you are. They transform your "I wish" into "I am." And once you start identifying as the kind of person who acts, momentum takes care of the rest. The beauty of momentum is that it's contagious. Once you create movement in one area of your life, it begins to spill into others. A morning workout makes you eat better. Reading before bed makes you sleep better. Organizing one corner of your room makes you want to organize your schedule. Each win reinforces the next, creating a ripple of energy that spreads through your habits, your thoughts, and even your relationships. That's the compounding effect in action, not just in outcomes, but in mindset. When you experience momentum, start to believe in the power of progress itself. You stop searching for shortcuts because you've tasted the reward of consistency. Still, momentum is fragile in its early stages. The same way a snowball needs careful rolling before it becomes unstoppable, your early progress needs protection. That means setting boundaries. It means saying no to distractions that pull you off track. It means valuing consistency over intensity. You don't need to work longer. You need to show up again tomorrow. It's not about doing more. It's about doing it again. The world rewards consistency far more than it rewards brilliance. Brilliance fades when it's inconsistent. Consistency compounds until it looks like brilliance. The people you admire aren't superhuman. They're just ordinary people who mastered the art of returning. Momentum also requires forgiveness. Miss days, you will lose focus. You will make mistakes. But what matters is that you restart quickly. Every comeback rekindles the flame. Danger isn't failure, it's stopping for too long. Remember, restarting is also progress. Every time you return to your path, you strengthen your ability to begin again, and that's what makes momentum durable. The greatest performers in any field are not those who never falter, but those who recover fastest. They treat small wins as anchors, reminders that progress is never erased by a single setback. Momentum doesn't need perfection, it needs patience. There will be long stretches where it feels like you're going nowhere, and then suddenly accelerate. That's the compounding curve. Slow, 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 then suddenly fast. It's how nature works. It's how mastery works. It's how you grow. The problem is that most people give up during the slow part, unaware that the breakthrough is only a few consistent efforts away. They stop pushing the flywheel right before it spins freely. But if you can stay patient, if you can fall in love with the process, can find joy in each small win, momentum will carry you to places your old self could never imagine. Think of how children learn to walk constantly. They stumble, they cry, they wobble. But they don't label themselves failures. They just keep trying. Every tiny success, every second they stand, strengthens their legs, their balance, and their belief. That's what we forget as adults. That growth isn't supposed to look graceful. It's messy, slow, and full of small, uncelebrated victories. But every step forward, no matter how shaky, adds to your momentum. The child eventually walks, not because they were born ready, but because they kept moving through the falling. As you build your own momentum, you'll notice something subtle yet profound. The process itself begins to change you. You become more patient, more disciplined, more forgiving. You start to trust yourself more. You realize that you no longer need massive motivation because you've built something stronger, momentum, powered by your small wins. It's no longer about forcing yourself to act. It's about not wanting to break the rhythm you've created, built a chain, and every day you keep it intact, you strengthen your identity. One day, others will see your success and call it luck. You'll know the truth. it was motion all along. So, as this chapter closes, remember this: momentum doesn't come from doing everything, it comes from doing something consistently. Every small win matters, not because of what it achieves today, but because of what it sets in motion tomorrow. Don't chase motivation, chase movement. Don't wait for perfect energy, create it through small action. Once momentum begins, it becomes your ally, your invisible force that carries you forward, even through resistance. Every big result you'll ever create starts here, in these moments of motion, when you decide that stopping is no longer an option. Keep pushing, moving, and let your small wins gather speed. Soon, you won't just be working toward success. You'll be carried by the current of your own momentum. Habits are the invisible architecture of our lives, quiet engineers that build or break our future, often without us realizing it. Every action we repeat is a brick in that architecture, shaping the structure of who we are becoming. Some people think change is about grand resolutions and dramatic overhauls, but true transformation begins with the habits we live by every day. They are the small, consistent choices that whisper our future into being: the food we eat, the words we speak, the thoughts we repeat, the people we spend time with. These are the seeds of our destiny. And yet, most of us treat habits as afterthoughts, not realizing that they are the foundation of everything we achieve or fail to achieve. This chapter is about understanding that small wins, when repeated long enough, become habits, and habits, once formed, create momentum so powerful it reshapes identity itself. The real question is not whether you have habits, it's whether your habits have you, because everyone has patterns, rituals, routines. Some built by design, others built by default. The goal isn't to break every bad habit or build every perfect one overnight. The goal is to understand the mechanics of change so deeply that you begin to live deliberately, not reactively. Every habit begins as a single act. The first time you choose to read instead of scroll, to cook instead of order out, to save instead of spend, speak kindly instead of complain, that's the spark. It feels small, almost trivial. But the brain is always watching, always recording, always learning from what you do. Neuroscientists call this process Hebbian learning. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Each repetition strengthens a connection, and over time, that connection becomes automatic. That's why habits feel natural, because your brain has learned to conserve energy by automating the familiar. Beauty of this is that you don't need to rely on endless willpower. Once a habit is formed, it runs on autopilot. The danger, of course, this works both ways. Good habits and bad ones are formed by the same mechanism. That's why awareness is everything. The moment you become conscious of your patterns, you reclaim power over them. Awareness turns the automatic into the intentional. Building good habits and dismantling bad ones both follow the same rule: make it easy to start and hard to stop. The key isn't to fight your brain. It's to design an environment that makes success the path of least resistance. If you want to exercise, lay out your clothes the night before. If you want to read more, keep a book on your pillow. If you want to eat healthy, fill your fridge with real food. The environment is stronger than willpower. We often think we fail because we're weak, but in reality, we fail because we expect ourselves to thrive in environments that sabotage us. A habit-friendly environment is like a riverbed guiding the flow of your behavior. It doesn't force you, it directs you. Change the environment, and behavior follows. But even more important than environment is identity. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits, and your habits are shaped by who you believe you are. Most people try to change their behavior while clinging to the same identity. They say, "I'm trying to be fit," or "I'm trying to be more organized," but the word trying reveals uncertainty. The person who truly changes says, "I am fit, I am organized, I am disciplined." Identity comes first, behavior follows. Every small win reinforces that identity. When you keep a promise to yourself, you cast a vote for the person you want to be. Each vote might feel insignificant, but like raindrops filling a bucket, add up until your self-image transforms. Change, at its core, process of identity alignment, making your actions match the story you tell yourself. When those two align, momentum becomes effortless. Of course, forming new habits isn't a straight path. There are plateaus, relapses, and resistance. That's normal. The brain doesn't like change because change burns energy. The first few weeks of any new habit feel like friction. But that friction is a sign of growth. Think of a rocket leaving the ground. Most of its fuel is burned in the first few seconds just to overcome gravity. Once it escapes the pull, it glides with far less effort. Your habits are the same. The beginning is hard because you're breaking gravity. The gravity of your old self, your old patterns, your old comfort zones. Once you push through that resistance, momentum takes over. But the only way to reach that point is consistency, not intensity. It's not about doing everything today, it's about doing something today, then doing it again tomorrow. Small wins stack. Another powerful truth about habits is that they create emotional feedback loops. When you complete a small action, brain releases dopamine, the chemical of reward. It's the brain's way of saying, "Do that again." The problem is that most people chase dopamine through destructive habits. Scrolling, junk food, gossip, distractions, because they provide instant gratification. The trick is to rewire your brain to crave the rewards that come from small, productive actions instead. You can do this by celebrating every small win, even privately. Smile after finishing your workout. Check off a habit tracker. Whisper, "I did it," to yourself. These micro rewards tell your brain that progress feels good, and that's how you create momentum from the inside out. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that discipline is about denying pleasure. In truth, about trading temporary pleasure for long-term peace. The satisfaction that comes from growth, mastery, and alignment is far richer than the short bursts of gratification that fade quickly. Small wins help bridge that gap because they provide mini moments of pride and satisfaction that keep you moving forward. They make progress feel real. When you start to associate effort with reward, your habits transform from chores into choices. And that's when you become unstoppable. There's also a rhythm to habit building that most people ignore: the balance between effort and rest. Just as muscles grow during recovery, habits grow during reflection. Taking time to pause, review, and appreciate your progress is part of the process. You can't rush mastery, you can only nurture it. Sometimes, stepping back is also a small win. It's not laziness, it's preservation. The goal isn't to burn out. It's to build something sustainable, something that lasts. When you zoom out, you realize that every great success story is really just a story of habits compounded over time. A best-selling author is someone who wrote a little every day. A marathon runner is someone who ran a little every morning. A wise person is someone who reflected a little every night. It's not genius that builds greatness. It's rhythm. And rhythm is built from small, repeated wins. The secret is not to wait until you feel inspired, it's to act until you feel inspired. Action fuels inspiration, not the other way around. So, as you listen to this chapter, remember your habits are shaping your future right now. Every small win you commit to today becomes a brick in the structure of the person you're building. Don't underestimate the power of repetition. Don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to start with one small win that aligns with who you want to be. Then repeat it until it becomes second nature. When you look back months or years from now, you won't remember the exact day the change happened. It won't feel like one big moment. It will feel like breathing. It will feel natural. That's what real transformation is. Not a single explosion of change, but a slow, steady evolution that becomes who you are. There's one truth to take from this chapter. It's this: small wins become habits, habits become identity, and identity becomes destiny. Every time you choose the small win, you're casting a vote for your future self. So choose carefully, repeat relentlessly, trust the compounding power of your daily actions. The habits you form today are quietly writing the story of your tomorrow. And if you can learn to love that process, the slow layering of progress, the quiet rhythm of discipline, the humble beauty of consistency, you'll discover that you don't need to chase success. You'll be living it, one small, intentional habit at a time. Discipline is the bridge between intention and achievement, the quiet muscle that carries dreams from thought into reality, yet it is one of the most misunderstood forces in human behavior. Many people imagine discipline as restriction, as something that steals joy. Discipline is the opposite. It is freedom earned through consistency. It is the steady rhythm that allows you to live by choice rather than impulse, to act according to your values instead of your moods. Discipline is not punishment, it's the structure that keeps chaos from ruling your life. Without it, small wins have no foundation. Discipline is what turns those wins into habits, and those habits into results. Most people fail not because they lack vision, because they lack structure to support that vision. They wait for motivation to show up, but motivation is fleeting. It depends on emotion, and emotion changes with the weather. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't ask how you feel, it simply asks what needs to be done. It's the decision to act even when the mind argues, the choice to keep going even when the spark fades. It's the quiet voice that says, "Do it anyway." The truth is, every act of discipline begins as an act of self-respect. When you follow through on what you said you would do, even when no one's watching, you strengthen your trust in yourself. And trust in yourself is the foundation of all confidence. Can't feel confident if you keep breaking promises to yourself. Discipline rebuilds that trust. Every time you wake up on time, every time you finish what you started, every time you resist the easy path, you prove to yourself that you're someone who can be counted on. And once your brain starts to believe that, everything changes. Your posture, your decisions, your sense of peace. Because discipline doesn't just build results, it builds identity. Stop seeing yourself as someone who tries, and start seeing yourself as someone who does. That identity shift is where the magic happens. Small wins give you proof. Discipline gives you power. But discipline doesn't mean forcing yourself into misery. It means designing a life that supports your best behavior. The strongest people don't rely on willpower alone. They create systems that make their desired actions easier and their destructive ones harder. They understand that discipline is about removing friction from the good habits and adding friction to the bad ones. Want to save more money? Automate your savings. Want to stop scrolling? Keep your phone in another room. Want to eat better? Prepare your meals in advance. Each small design choice makes the disciplined path the natural one. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. You don't win by fighting your impulses. You win by guiding them. It's also important to realize that discipline doesn't mean you have to be perfect. In fact, perfection is the enemy of discipline. Real discipline is flexible, not rigid. It knows that some days you'll stumble, that life will interrupt your plans, that progress isn't always linear. What matters most is how quickly you return. The ability to restart is the purest form of discipline. Anyone can follow a plan when everything is easy. Discipline shows itself when things are not. It's not about never falling. It's about never staying down. That's why disciplined people seem calm even when facing setbacks. They trust the process. They know one missed day doesn't erase months of effort. They don't see mistakes as failures, they see them as feedback. They adjust, adapt, and continue. That's why their results compound. Because they don't waste energy on guilt, they use it to rebuild momentum. There's a quiet beauty in disciplined living. It simplifies life. When you're disciplined, waste time deciding whether or not to do something. You've already decided. You act. You follow through. Free your mind from the endless negotiations that drain energy. You create clarity, and clarity breeds peace. Of a river, its power comes from direction. The water doesn't scatter, it flows in one determined path. Discipline gives your life that same focus. It channels your energy toward what truly matters, rather than letting it leak into distractions. And here's the paradox. Once you master discipline, life feels lighter, not heavier. The very thing that seems restrictive at first becomes liberating because it removes chaos and indecision. No longer wake up asking, "Should I?" You simply do. In the journey of compounding small wins is the invisible thread that ties them together. Without it, small wins scatter. With it, they accumulate. Act of discipline strengthens the next one. When you show up for your morning routine, it becomes easier to eat well. When you eat well, feel more energized to exercise. When you exercise, your mind becomes clearer to focus on your goals. That's how discipline compounds. Each action feeds the next, creating a loop of strength. But like all things, it begins small. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You just need to practice keeping one promise to yourself consistently. Once you build trust in one area, that trust spills into others. Many people think discipline is about saying no, but it's really about saying yes. Yes to your long-term vision. Yes to your higher standards. Yes to becoming the kind of person you're proud of. Saying no to temptation isn't deprivation, it's protection. You're protecting your peace, your progress, your potential. You're choosing the discomfort of growth over the comfort of regret. And though it's not easy, it's always worth it. Because every time you delay gratification, you strengthen your future. You stop chasing temporary highs and start building permanent fulfillment. That's what discipline does. It shifts your pleasure timeline. You stop needing things to happen now because you know you're building something that lasts. Of course, discipline doesn't mean grinding endlessly. Having priorities. Knowing what truly deserves your energy and what doesn't. Many people confuse business with discipline. They are not the same. Business is movement without direction. Discipline is movement with purpose. A disciplined person doesn't do more. What matters? They say no to the noise so they can say yes to the meaningful. That's why disciplined people seem so focused. They've learned the art of subtraction. They remove what doesn't serve them. No strengthens every yes. Discipline also requires compassion. You cannot hate yourself into discipline. It must come from love. Love for your potential, love for your goals, love for your future self. Harsh self-talk breaks consistency. Gentle accountability builds it. Talk to yourself like someone you're responsible for taking care of. When you mess up, don't punish yourself, and realign. When you succeed, celebrate even the smallest wins. Every celebration reinforces the behavior you want to keep. The cycle of discipline is built not on guilt, but on grace. There's an old saying, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. That's especially true with discipline. The idea of doing something hard is often more painful than the act itself. Once you start, the resistance fades. That's why the hardest part of any task is starting. If you can just start, just take that first small action, momentum will take over. Discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And just like muscles, it needs training. Start small, keep promises, build consistency. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes your new normal. You no longer need to force discipline, because you've become it. When you reach that level, discipline transforms from effort into identity. You no longer say, I have to work out. You say, this is what I do. You no longer need to push yourself, you're pulled by who you've become. That's when compounding truly begins to accelerate. You're no longer fighting your habits are carrying you forward. Discipline becomes your ally. The quiet, loyal companion that walks beside you through distraction, doubt, and difficulty. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It simply reminds you every day, you are capable of more than your excuses. So, as you move beyond this chapter, remember, this truth: discipline is not about force. It's about alignment. It's not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's not about control, about freedom. The kind of freedom that comes from living in harmony with your values. Every act of discipline, no matter how small, compounds. Every small win you follow through on strengthens your identity. And one day, without realizing it, look back and see how far you've come. Not because of luck or talent, but because of the hundreds of quiet moments when you chose to do what needed to be done. That's the essence of discipline. The daily decision to honor your potential, to stay the course, and to keep walking across that bridge between who you are and who you're meant to be, one small, disciplined step at a time. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in human progress, yet one of the least understood. It's the invisible current that carries you forward once you begin to move. The silent ally that turns effort into flow. Momentum is the reward for showing up consistently, the compound interest of persistence. It begins slowly, like a heavy wheel that resists your first push. Once it starts turning, it builds its own energy. Every small action you take feeds that wheel. Every early morning, every repetition, every page written, every promise kept, and eventually, it begins to spin with less effort. What once required willpower begins to happen naturally. Stop needing to push, the process starts to pull you. That's the magic of momentum. It makes discipline feel effortless. But to reach that stage, you have to start before you feel ready. Most people wait for inspiration, for motivation, for the perfect time, but momentum doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who move. The first steps are always the hardest, not because the path is unclear, but because you're fighting inertia, that heavy stillness of inaction that convinces you to stay where you are. The human brain loves comfort, but growth lives in motion, and motion begins with one decision to start, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect. Momentum is built through repetition, not intensity. It's not the one massive burst of effort that changes your life. It's the consistent, ordinary actions done over and over again until they become unstoppable. Think of a train. It takes tremendous energy to get moving. Once it's in motion, even mountains can't easily stop it. Your habits work the same way. Every day you act in alignment with your goals, you add weight to your movement. Every day you stop, you lose a bit of that power. That's why consistency beats intensity every time. You can't sprint your way to success, you must walk steadily toward it. The longer you sustain motion, the easier it becomes. Momentum thrives on continuity. It hates interruptions. Every time you restart from zero, you have to overcome that initial friction all over again. That's why the most successful people in any field protect their routines. Not because they love structure, because they know that structure keeps momentum alive. There's something deeply psychological about momentum too. When you start to see results, small ones, your mind begins to believe that change is possible. That belief fuels more action, which creates more results, strengthens the belief even further. It's a self-reinforcing loop. Progress creates motivation, and motivation creates more progress. The problem is that many people wait for motivation before they act, not realizing that motivation comes after motion, not before it. You don't get motivated to write a book by thinking about writing. You get motivated by writing one sentence. You don't get inspired to work out by waiting for energy. You get inspired after you've moved your body. Motion creates emotion. Momentum turns effort into enthusiasm. Once you understand this, you stop waiting and start doing. And doing becomes your source of energy. Momentum also has a compounding nature. Just like small wins, it grows exponentially. At first, progress seems invisible. You'll work hard and feel like nothing's changing. But the truth is, momentum builds beneath the surface long before it shows above it. It's like water heating before it boils. Each degree feels small, but once you cross a threshold, transformation happens all at once. The same principle applies to any goal. The early effort feels unrewarded because you're building potential energy. Once that energy releases, results appear suddenly. But they're never sudden. They're the visible tipping point of countless invisible actions. That's why patience is essential. If you stop too soon, you never experience the payoff of momentum. The secret is to keep moving when you can't yet see the results, trusting that every small push adds up. Another truth about momentum is that it doesn't just happen in your favor. It can also work against you. Negative momentum is just as real as positive momentum. The more you delay, the easier it becomes to keep delaying. The more you break promises to yourself, the easier it becomes to keep breaking them. Every decision you make sets a direction. You're either spiraling upward or downward. That's why awareness is so important. You can shift momentum at any time, but the longer you wait, the harder it gets. The first missed day doesn't matter much, the 5th begins to. The 10th becomes a pattern. The 20th becomes identity. To protect your positive momentum, you must act quickly when you slip. Don't let a small stumble become a slide. Momentum is emotional. It feeds on how you interpret your actions. If you see a mistake as failure, you'll lose energy. If you see it as feedback, you'll use it to grow. That shift in perspective determines whether momentum accelerates or evaporates. One of the most powerful ways to build momentum is through focus. Every time you divide your attention, you divide your progress. You can't build speed if you keep switching directions. Most people fail to sustain momentum not because they lack talent, but because they keep restarting new things. The energy that could have built mastery gets scattered across too many beginnings. Momentum loves focus, rewards commitment. When you give something consistent attention over time, you move from shallow motion to deep flow. Your actions start to compound, your skill sharpens, and your confidence expands. That's when the world begins to notice your effort. Not because you did something flashy, because you stayed the course when others quit. Focus turns small progress into exponential growth. Momentum also connects deeply to identity. When you consistently show up, you start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. That identity fuels further action. You no longer act because you have to. You act because it's who you are. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop wondering if you're capable. Momentum erases self-doubt through evidence. Every completed action becomes proof that you can. That proof builds belief. The kind of unshakable confidence that no motivational speech can give you. The longer you sustain momentum, stronger your belief becomes, until the thought of stopping feels unnatural. That's when growth becomes automatic. You no longer chase consistency, consistency chases you. The key to maintaining momentum is simplicity. Complexity kills motion. When your system is too elaborate, fragile, one small disruption and it collapses. The people who sustain long-term success keep their processes simple, repeatable, and flexible. They don't rely on perfect conditions, they rely on consistency under imperfect ones. They know that life will throw obstacles, so they design habits that can survive bad days. That's the difference between momentum that lasts and motivation that fades. Sustainable momentum is built on small, repeatable actions that can be done anywhere, anytime. It doesn't depend on mood, environment, or circumstance. It depends on decision. Momentum also thrives on celebration. Every time you acknowledge your progress, you reinforce it. Most people move from goal to goal without pausing to appreciate how far they've come, and in doing so, they drain their own drive. Gratitude is fuel. When you celebrate your wins, no matter how small, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical of motivation, which encourages you to keep going. Start associating effort with reward, struggle with satisfaction. This emotional reinforcement is what keeps the wheel spinning. Without it, momentum dies from emotional exhaustion. So, take moments to reflect, to appreciate, to smile at your progress. Those pauses don't slow you down. They strengthen your stride. The beautiful irony of momentum is that it makes hard things feel easy. But only after you've done the hard part of starting. In the beginning, it feels like you're pushing uphill, but once you reach the crest, gravity helps you. That's why the early stages of any journey are the most critical. You can endure the initial resistance, the doubt, the discomfort, the slow pace. You'll reach a point where momentum takes over. And once it does, everything changes. You begin to see opportunities where you once saw obstacles. You begin to act faster, think clearer, and recover quicker. Success starts to feel natural because your habits are now aligned with your goals. You become unstoppable not because you never tire, but because your movement sustains itself. Momentum, in its truest sense, is life itself. The forward motion of energy, purpose, and belief. What keeps the universe expanding? What keeps the heart beating? What keeps dreams alive? To build it, you don't need perfection. You just need direction, action, and consistency. Start small, move daily, and let the rhythm of your effort create its own power. The world doesn't reward those who start fast. It rewards those who keep going. Once you understand that momentum is the bridge between small wins and massive results, you stop chasing quick success and start nurturing steady progress. Every small act of movement matters, because momentum is not built in leaps. It's built in layers. And if you keep adding those layers, day after day, one day you'll look up and realize that what once took all your strength now happens with ease. That's the quiet miracle of momentum. The moment when effort transforms into energy, small wins begin to carry you toward greatness. Habits are the silent architects of destiny, the invisible threads that weave the fabric of our days and ultimately define the quality of our lives. They are not merely actions we repeat. They are the patterns that determine who we become. Every choice we make, every small decision, every repeated behavior builds upon itself until it becomes automatic, ingrained, and self-sustaining. That is the true power of habits. They take effort at the beginning, but eventually take over the work for you. Most people underestimate how deeply habits shape their existence because they confuse big intentions with small routines. They believe transformation happens through dramatic shifts, but in truth, it happens through subtle repetition. The person you are today is simply a reflection of the habits you've built. What you consistently do, think, and prioritize. You want to change your life, you must change your habits. If you want to become someone new, you must start by doing something new. Consistently, it becomes effortless. That's how small wins compound into greatness, through the quiet force of habit. When we think of habits, we often imagine discipline and routine, but at their core, habits are about identity. You don't build habits to get results. Build them to become the kind of person who naturally creates results. Every time you perform a small action, you cast a vote for the type of person you want to be. When you wake up early, you're voting for being proactive. When you read instead of scrolling, you're voting for being a learner. When you exercise even when you're tired, you're voting for being resilient. None of these actions alone defines you, but together, they tell your brain a story. This is who I am. And once that identity takes hold, it fuels consistency effortlessly. Habits don't just change behavior, they change self-perception. The reason most people struggle to stick with good habits is that they chase outcomes instead of identity. They say, I want to lose weight, instead of, I want to become a healthy person. They say, I want to write a book, instead of, I am a writer. When the focus shifts from what you want to who you are, everything becomes easier. Your actions naturally align with your self-image. The formation of a habit follows a simple but profound loop: cue, routine, reward. A cue triggers behavior, the routine is the action, and the reward reinforces the loop. Understanding this pattern is key to mastering change. You can't simply remove a bad habit, you must replace it. If you try to eliminate the cue without addressing the craving behind it, brain will find another outlet. That's why the most effective way to break a bad habit is to keep the cue and the reward but change the routine in between. For instance, stress triggers mindless eating. Don't remove the cue of stress, you can't. But change the routine. Replace the snack with a walk, a stretch, a few deep breaths. Over time, your brain learns that the new action satisfies the same emotional need. This is the art of habit substitution. You're not fighting your brain, you're retraining it. Good habits thrive on simplicity. The more friction you remove from doing something positive, the easier it becomes to sustain. Want to read more? Keep a book by your bed or desk. Want to eat healthier? Pair meals ahead of time and keep fruits visible. Want to save money? Automate your transfers. Your environment often shapes your habits more than your willpower does. It's easier to make the right choice when it's the default option. The same way, you can make bad habits harder by adding friction. Keep your phone out of reach when you work. Don't stock junk food in the house. Cancel subscriptions that waste your time. Every tiny adjustment to your surroundings shifts the path of least resistance. The secret to success isn't self-control, it's smart design. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Another crucial aspect of building habits is timing. People often overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. The human brain needs time to adapt to new behaviors. The first stage of habit formation is discomfort because your brain resists change. It prefers the familiar. The second stage is effort, where you must consciously remind yourself to act. The third stage is integration, where the behavior becomes automatic, almost effortless. The key is persistence long enough to reach that third stage. Research shows that it takes anywhere from 21 to 66 days for a habit to become automatic. But the number doesn't matter as much as the consistency. It's not about how fast you form a habit. It's about how steadily you build it. Every repetition is a brick in the foundation of change. If you keep laying bricks, the wall will eventually stand. Habits also have emotional weight. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you build self-trust. Every time you break one, you chip away at it. That's why small wins matter so much. They create a positive emotional loop. You do something good, you feel proud, that pride reinforces the habit, you do it again. The reverse is also true, missing one action might not matter. But when guilt follows it, create a negative emotional loop that leads to avoidance. The solution is compassion. When you slip, don't punish yourself. Restart immediately. The faster you recover, the stronger the habit becomes. Momentum loves forgiveness. Rigid perfection kills it. To truly master habits, must also understand the power of keystone habits. Those few behaviors that create a ripple effect across multiple areas of your life. Exercise, for example, doesn't just improve fitness, it improves sleep, focus, mood, and confidence. Journaling clarifies thoughts, reduces anxiety, and sharpens decision-making. Waking up early gives you more time and control over your day. These habits are anchors, once established. They naturally pull other good behaviors along with them. If you're overwhelmed by too many changes, focus on just one keystone habit. Let it stabilize your life, and you'll find that other habits begin to form naturally around it. But habits don't only operate on the individual level. They shape culture, relationships, and entire communities. Think about workplaces where punctuality, communication, and respect are habitual. They thrive because collective habits reinforce collective success. Families that share daily gratitude rituals tend to feel more connected. The same principle applies to nations, sports teams, and friendships. The habits of a group define its destiny, just as much as the habits of an individual define theirs. That's why building strong habits isn't selfish. It's contagious. When you change your habits, you influence everyone around you. The hardest part of creating habits is not starting, it's sustaining. In the beginning, you have excitement and motivation. But after the novelty fades, repetition feels dull. This is where most people quit. To overcome this, you must learn to find joy in the process itself, not just the outcome. When you enjoy the act, you stop chasing rewards and start living in rhythm. The goal isn't to meditate for an hour. It's to become the kind of person who values stillness. The goal isn't to write a book, it's to fall in love with writing. When process becomes identity, consistency becomes inevitable. The small wins stop feeling small because they are expressions of who you are. Another key to sustaining habits is tracking them. What gets measured gets improved. When you visually record your progress, whether it's a journal, a checklist, a digital app, you create accountability and satisfaction. You see the streak, and your brain craves continuation. This simple act transforms abstract effort into tangible proof. Even more powerful is reflection, asking yourself weekly what worked, what didn't, what can improve. Habits are living systems, they need feedback to evolve. Reflection keeps you intentional, preventing autopilot from turning into stagnation. Ultimately, habits are not chains that bind you. They are wings that lift you. They free your mind from constant decision-making, saving energy for creativity, growth, and meaning. Bad habits enslave, good habits empower. The difference lies in awareness and choice. Every morning you wake up, you have the chance to rewrite your pattern, to choose differently, act in alignment with your higher self. And while the effects of one good habit might seem small today, over months and years they shape your destiny. Great life, every great achievement, every enduring legacy is built not on luck or genius, but on the quiet consistency of habits that served a purpose. Start small, stay steady, and let your habits build your future. One small win at a time, one consistent action after another. One day, you realize the extraordinary life you've built wasn't a miracle. It was a masterpiece crafted by the invisible, unstoppable force of habit. Patience is the soil in which every great result grows, the quiet virtue that holds everything together when progress feels invisible and the reward seems far away. One of the most underestimated qualities in a world that glorifies speed, immediacy, and overnight success. Yet, is one truth about compounding small wins, it's this: they only multiply through time. Patience is not passive waiting, it's active endurance. It's the strength to keep nurturing your habits, your goals, and your growth even when the world gives you no applause, no evidence, no instant gratification. The greatest transformations in life happen beneath the surface before they appear above it, just like seeds germinating underground, quietly gathering strength until one day they break through the soil. Most people give up before that moment. They plant the seed, water it for a few days, and when they don't see results, they move on to the next dream. But those who understand patience know that progress often looks like nothing until it's everything. They don't confuse silence with stagnation, because they know that time is not the enemy, it's the partner of growth. Patience is a form of wisdom. It understands that meaningful change takes rhythm and repetition, that consistency is worth more than intensity. The passage of time refines what effort begins. Without patience, discipline breaks. Without patience, momentum collapses. Without patience, the strongest habits falter, because impatience is the voice of doubt disguised as urgency. It whispers, "It's not working," even when it is. It convinces you to abandon the process just before the results begin to appear. That's why patience is a superpower in the age of immediacy. While others chase quick wins, patient people build lasting ones. They're not rushing for validation, they're planting roots. They understand that the deeper the roots, the higher the growth. Tree does not envy the weed that sprouts overnight, because it knows that true strength takes time. The world today trains us to expect speed. We live in a culture of instant messages, one-click purchases, fast food, and viral fame. Everything around us is designed to shorten the distance between desire and fulfillment. But while convenience can make life easier, it also makes patience harder. We begin to assume that all progress should feel instant, and when it doesn't, we call it failure. But life doesn't move at the speed of technology. It moves at the speed of nature. The laws of growth haven't changed just because our devices have. Still can't rush mastery. You can't shortcut character. You can't fast forward healing, learning, or transformation. Some processes need to unfold slowly, not because you're weak, but because they're deep. Patience gives you the capacity to honor that pace. Allow life to unfold in its timing rather than yours. When you commit to patience, you're making peace with the idea that the path matters as much as the destination. Your attention. You stop measuring your worth by how fast you're moving and start valuing the fact that you're moving at all. You begin to notice the subtle shifts, the growing awareness, the small wins, the gradual ease that comes from repetition. Every day you stay consistent is a day you strengthen your foundation, even if the results aren't visible yet. And then, suddenly, one day they are. What once felt impossible becomes natural. What once felt slow begins to accelerate. That's the paradox of patience. It feels like delay. It's actually acceleration in disguise. Because what patience builds lasts far longer than what haste creates. Patience is also about trust. Trusting the process, trusting yourself, and trusting time. It's easy to work hard when results come quickly. It's harder to keep going when they don't. But the most successful people in any field are those who mastered this trust. Your attention, they keep showing up not because they have guarantees, but because they have faith in the law of cause and effect. They understand that every action plants a seed, and every seed takes time to sprout. Don't demand immediate harvest because they know that time is part of the equation. Every great artist, athlete, entrepreneur, or thinker has lived through long seasons of obscurity where effort seemed invisible. But they persisted, not out of arrogance, but out of patience. They believed that the process was doing its work, even when they couldn't see it. One of the greatest mistakes people make is confusing activity with progress. Impatience makes you chase motion instead of direction. Start changing plans, shifting goals, and restarting projects in the hope that faster means better. But every reset costs momentum. Patience, on the other hand, gives you the courage to stay. It reminds you that mastery is born from repetition, not reinvention. Teaches you to refine instead of restart, to improve instead of abandon. Give them your full attention. The difference between those who achieve something great and those who almost do often comes down to how long they were willing to wait for the results to reveal themselves. The impatient person digs up the seed to check if it's growing. The patient one keeps watering it. Guess which one ends up with the tree? Patience also teaches emotional stability. When you're patient, you stop being tossed around by every emotion, every setback, every external result. You develop a calm inner rhythm, a sense of groundedness that keeps you steady no matter how uncertain the journey feels. You begin to understand that frustration is part of growth, not a sign of failure. You learn to sit with discomfort, to breathe through delay, to see value in slow progress. In that stillness, you grow wiser, more resilient, more capable of handling life's inevitable uncertainties. Impatience, on the other hand, breeds anxiety and burnout. It's a constant state of wanting the future to arrive faster. But the future doesn't reward rushing. It rewards readiness. And patience is what prepares you to receive what you've been working for. To practice patience doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right things long enough for them to work. It's the willingness to stay consistent without constantly needing proof. Think of the craftsman carving a masterpiece. He doesn't demand the wood to reveal its beauty immediately. He chips away, stroke by stroke, trusting that the shape will emerge. In the same way, your efforts, habits, and routines are carving the sculpture of your life. It may look rough now. Patience ensures the beauty emerges in time. The only way to ruin it is to quit halfway. Patience doesn't guarantee immediate success. Impatience guarantees failure. There's also a deep connection between patience and gratitude. When you're patient, you learn to appreciate the journey instead of resenting it. You begin to see that every small challenge is refining you, that every delay is teaching you something you couldn't have learned otherwise. Gratitude turns waiting into growth, transforms frustration into understanding. It makes you realize that every season of your life, even the slow ones, has a purpose. Sometimes, what feels like a pause is really preparation. The longer you stay patient, the more perspective you gain, and with perspective comes peace. Patience, many ways, is a test of faith. Faith in your work, faith in your vision, faith in the process. It's not about waiting for things to happen. It's about continuing to act without giving up. Every day you practice patience, you're training your mind to resist the urge for instant gratification, building emotional strength, focus, and endurance. And over time, that mental toughness becomes your competitive advantage. While others quit because progress feels slow, you keep compounding. You keep stacking small wins, and one day, small wins transform into results so big they seem sudden to everyone else. But you'll know the truth. You'll know they were built patiently, one day, one action, one choice at a time. So, as you walk your path, remember that patience isn't waiting for life to happen. It's working steadily while life unfolds. Quiet confidence that if you stay consistent, time will magnify your effort. Don't rush your process. Don't compare your pace to others. Everyone blooms in their own season. The sun doesn't rise faster because you're in a hurry, and neither will your growth. What matters is that you keep showing up, calmly, steadily, faithfully. Because patience doesn't delay success, it ensures it. In the end, those who master patience don't just reach their goals, they outlast everyone who tried to rush theirs. The slow and steady, as the old saying goes, still win the race, not because they're faster, but because they never stop moving. Patience is the art of enduring without resentment, progressing without panic, and trusting without evidence. And once you learn to live that way, no obstacle, no delay, no doubt can ever stop you from turning your small, steady wins into something truly extraordinary. Momentum is the invisible force that turns small wins into unstoppable progress. Quiet energy that builds when action meets consistency, and the power that carries you forward even when motivation fades. Momentum is not created in bursts of inspiration or rare moments of greatness. It is built in the rhythm of daily effort, steady repetition of small choices that compound over time. Once momentum begins to move in your favor, everything feels lighter, faster, and more natural. The same way a rolling ball gathers speed as it travels downhill. But before that effortless flow begins, there's resistance, friction, slow, heavy push of getting started. The hardest part of any journey is the beginning. The first few steps, when the results are invisible, energy feels spent, and the goal still looks far away. That's where most people quit, not because they lack ability, because they never stayed long enough to feel the magic of momentum. When you understand how momentum works, how it grows, how it multiplies, how to protect it, you begin to see progress not as a fight, but as a natural force that works in your favor. Momentum is built through consistency, and consistency is born from discipline. Motivation might start the journey, but momentum sustains it. Think of momentum as a wave. Once you catch it, carries you, amplifying every bit of effort you put in. But if you stop paddling too early, the wave passes, and you have to start again from still waters. The truth is, momentum loves movement. It doesn't demand perfection, it only asks for persistence. Even the smallest effort keeps the current alive. 1 page read, 1 minute of reflection, 1 healthy choice. They all matter because they maintain your forward motion. The tragedy of many dreams is not that they were impossible, but that they lost momentum. The gap between success and stagnation often isn't talent, it's interrupted motion. When you stop too long, resistance grows heavier, inaction compounds too, and the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to restart. That's why one of the greatest skills you can develop is the ability to protect your momentum. The physics of momentum applies beautifully to human behavior. Objects in motion stay in motion unless acted upon by an opposing force. The same is true for habits, progress, and growth. When you're moving forward, even slowly, life begins to align with your energy. Opportunities appear, clarity sharpens, and your self-belief strengthens because momentum fuels confidence. Every action validates your ability to keep going. But when you stop, creeps in, confidence fades, and everything feels uphill again. That's why maintaining momentum isn't just about what you do physically. It's also about what you protect mentally. Protect your rhythm by managing your environment, your focus, and your emotions. You guard against the energy drainers, distractions, negativity, and procrastination that can bring your forward motion to a halt. Momentum doesn't demand that you move fast, but it does require that you keep moving. Build momentum, you must understand the compound effect of effort. Every small action feeds the next. The first push might take everything you have, but once you move, each successive action requires less force. In business, health, or personal growth, the pattern is the same. The early days are the hardest, but if you can endure them, the process starts to assist you. Success starts to feel like gravity working in your favor. The habit you once struggled to start becomes automatic, the skill that felt difficult becomes natural, and the fear that once held you back begins to fade. That's the beauty of momentum. It transforms effort into flow. But flow doesn't appear by accident. It's earned by showing up when progress feels invisible, by pushing through the stillness until movement becomes effortless. Momentum is emotional as much as it is mechanical. Every small success generates a burst of positive energy that reinforces your commitment. This is why celebrating small wins is crucial. It's not about ego, it's about energy. When you recognize your progress, you tell your brain, "This is working," and your brain responds by giving you the motivation to keep going. That's the psychological flywheel of growth. Each small achievement fuels the next, creating a self-sustaining cycle of confidence and effort. Over time, this emotional reinforcement builds a powerful sense of belief. Belief that you can, belief that you are improving, and belief that your actions matter. Once belief takes root, momentum becomes nearly unstoppable. But momentum can also be fragile. It doesn't disappear instantly, but it weakens with neglect. The same way a spinning wheel slows down without constant motion, your progress begins to fade when effort becomes irregular. That's why momentum thrives on rhythm, daily habits, rituals, and structures that keep you engaged even on low-energy days. Some days your effort might feel small, but small effort is still motion. What kills progress is not imperfection, it's inconsistency. Lose momentum because you're tired. You lose it because you stop completely. So instead of asking, "How can I do this perfectly?" ask, "How can I keep this moving, even just a little, today?" That mindset shift is what separates those who maintain momentum from those who lose it. Momentum also teaches humility. When things are moving smoothly, it's easy to believe that success will last forever. But momentum must be nurtured. You can't take it for granted. The same habits that built your progress are the ones that sustain it. Complacency is the quiet killer of momentum. The moment you stop refining your habits, improving your skills, and staying alert, current starts to slow. Momentum rewards attention, not arrogance. It's not about riding the wave blindly. It's about steering it consciously. Every day, ask yourself, what's one small action that keeps my energy alive? What's one small improvement that keeps me growing? When you treat momentum as something sacred, it continues to serve you long after others have burned out. The power of momentum can be seen everywhere, in nature, in business, in personal transformation. Rivers carve valleys because water never stops moving. Athletes become champions because they practice relentlessly, even when no one's watching. Companies grow exponentially because they keep refining, innovating, and staying consistent long enough for results to compound. The pattern is universal: motion creates energy, energy creates growth, growth sustains motion. Momentum is the bridge between effort and excellence. It's what turns repetition into mastery and consistency into legacy. Without it, even great potential withers in hesitation. With it, even modest effort becomes extraordinary over time. Momentum also thrives on alignment. When your actions match your values, your purpose, and your vision, your energy flows freely. Misalignment, doing things out of obligation, fear, or distraction, creates resistance. You can't maintain momentum if you're constantly fighting yourself. The most effective way to build unstoppable motion is to align your daily actions with what truly matters to you. When you work from purpose, consistency becomes easier. You no longer force yourself to move, you're pulled forward by meaning. That's the deepest form of momentum: internal, authentic, and self-reinforcing. It doesn't rely on external rewards because it's powered by intrinsic drive. Momentum has another secret: it compounds not just through success, but through recovery. Many people think they lose all progress when they stumble, but true momentum includes rest, reflection, and adaptation. Taking a break doesn't break momentum, giving up does. When you learn to rest without quitting, you maintain the thread of movement even in stillness. Reflection refuels you, helping you return stronger and more focused. The key is not to disconnect entirely, but to pause with purpose. Growth isn't linear, it's rhythmic. The dance of effort and rest, push and pause, builds sustainable momentum that lasts far longer than all-out effort followed by burnout. In the end, momentum is the story of energy meeting time. It's what happens when small, consistent actions gather strength through repetition and belief. You don't build momentum overnight, but once it arrives, like the world is conspiring to help you. Opportunities appear, ideas flow, and challenges shrink because you're no longer stuck. You're moving. The beautiful thing about momentum is that it works both ways, build you up or break you down. Negative habits also compound, creating downward motion that feels just as powerful. The difference lies in your awareness. Whether you're feeding the momentum that serves you or the one that drains you. Every day, choices tilt the balance. So, protect your forward motion fiercely. Keep showing up. Keep stacking the small wins. Keep your focus on the process, the pace. Because once you build momentum, it will begin to carry you in ways you never imagined. The struggle that once felt endless will become effortless flow. The mountain that once seemed impossible will become a steady climb. And all it takes is the courage to start, the discipline to continue, and the wisdom to never stop moving. Momentum is not magic. It's motion, multiplied by time. And when you harness it, you stop chasing success and start riding the wave of your own steady progress toward everything you've dreamed of becoming. Discipline is the bridge between intention and achievement, quiet force that transforms dreams into action, and the structure that gives meaning to motivation. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, it's rarely celebrated, yet it is the most powerful tool you have to create lasting success. Where motivation flickers, discipline endures. Where passion fades, discipline sustains. And where inspiration fails to appear, discipline keeps you moving forward anyway. Discipline is not about restriction. It's about freedom. The freedom to live life on your terms, the freedom that comes from knowing you can trust yourself to do what needs to be done. Even when you don't feel like it. Most people wait for the right mood to act, but discipline flips that logic upside down. It says, act first, the mood will follow. It's a quiet rebellion against procrastination, laziness, and self-doubt. A steady, consistent voice that whispers, keep going, long after the excitement is gone. Every great achievement, every lasting transformation, every story of success has discipline as its silent foundation. Without it, even the brightest spark of motivation eventually burns out. Discipline begins with a promise. The promise you make to yourself that your goals are worth more than your excuses. It's easy to keep promises to others, but discipline is the art of keeping promises to yourself, especially when no one is watching. It's the difference between saying you'll change and actually changing. Most people underestimate how much inner strength it takes to stay consistent. But discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. It's about building the muscle of follow-through. It's time you push past resistance, it's hard. The second time, it's easier. And over time, discipline becomes a habit, an identity, even. You no longer need to negotiate with yourself every morning. It becomes automatic, like breathing. The question shifts from, do I feel like it? To, is it time? That's when you know discipline has truly taken root. When effort is no longer optional, discipline also teaches you respect. Not just for time, but for your potential. Every time you choose consistency over comfort, you send a message to yourself that you are capable of more. You stop being at the mercy of mood swings, distractions, and temporary emotions. Instead, begin to live by principle. Emotions become data, not dictators. You can feel tired and still take action. You can feel unmotivated and still move forward. That's not suppression. That's strength. The disciplined person doesn't wait for inspiration, create it through action. And ironically, once you act, motivation often follows. The moment you start doing what you said you would do, you feel better. That's the paradox of discipline. What feels difficult at first often becomes the source of your deepest satisfaction later. There's a misconception that discipline means living a rigid, joyless life. In truth, discipline creates more joy because it replaces chaos with clarity. When you're disciplined, you no longer waste energy debating what to do. You've already decided. That decision gives you peace. The energy you use to spend on guilt, procrastination, and regret is freed for creation, learning, and growth. You begin to trust yourself. That trust builds confidence. Self-discipline is the purest form of self-respect. It's how you prove to yourself that your goals matter. Every small act of follow-through strengthens that self-respect. You become someone who does what they say they'll do, and that reliability radiates into every part of your life. People who master discipline don't just achieve more, they carry themselves differently. They move with certainty, because they know they can rely on themselves. The structure of discipline is built through habits, routines, and systems that support your goals. Willpower is finite. Structure makes it sustainable. Instead of relying on bursts of determination, disciplined people design environments that make the right choices easier. They remove temptations, set clear priorities, plan ahead so that effort becomes automatic. Think of a pilot preparing for flight. Every switch, every checklist, every step is deliberate, not accidental. The same applies to your growth. Discipline thrives when you make success easier to repeat. It's not about having extraordinary willpower, about building ordinary systems that produce extraordinary results. Over time, those systems become your safety net. Even when life feels chaotic, your structure keeps you anchored. Discipline is also built on boundaries. The ability to say no, not just to distractions, anything that doesn't align with your purpose. Every yes you give to something meaningless is a no to something that matters. Discipline helps you protect your time and attention, the two currencies of growth. It's not selfish, it's strategic. When you say no to what drains you, you make space for what fuels you. You stop scattering your energy and start focusing it like a laser. That's when progress accelerates. When your attention is no longer divided, your energy no longer diluted. Discipline isn't about doing more, about doing what matters most consistently. There will always be resistance. The mind loves comfort and hates change. That's why the hardest part of discipline is the first 5 minutes. The decision to start. Once you begin, momentum takes over. The discipline to start daily is what separates amateurs from masters. Masters don't wait for ideal conditions, they work with what they have. They don't need perfect weather to train, perfect timing to write, or perfect peace to think. They act, no matter what, because they understand that progress hides inside repetition. The work you do today doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to exist. Discipline is about building a body of effort that compounds, not about chasing flawless days. 10 imperfect days of effort are worth infinitely more than one perfect day, followed by 9 of inaction. One of the biggest gifts of discipline is that it transforms identity. When you act consistently, even in small ways, your brain begins to see you differently. You're no longer someone trying to be disciplined. You are disciplined. And that identity shift is permanent. Once you see yourself as capable of self-control, the rest of your life expands. You begin to expect more from yourself and accept less from excuses. You don't rely on external accountability anymore because internal accountability has taken root. You start doing things not because someone's watching, but because it's who you are. That's the true power of discipline. It creates alignment between intention and identity, but discipline must be balanced with compassion. Too much rigidity can lead to burnout, guilt, and perfectionism. Discipline without self-kindness becomes punishment, and punishment eventually breeds rebellion. The healthiest form of discipline is flexible. It adapts, it forgives, it learns. Missing one day doesn't mean you've failed, it means you're human. What matters is that you return. The disciplined person doesn't crumble when they slip, they recover faster. They see setbacks as feedback, not defeat. They understand that long-term consistency is built not from never falling, but from always getting back up. That's what makes discipline sustainable. It's not built on shame, but on responsibility. Discipline also transforms your relationship with time. When you live with discipline, you stop feeling rushed because you stop wasting hours on indecision, begin to realize that time is not the enemy. Distraction is. You move through your day with calm focus, knowing that every moment you invest wisely compounds. You stop chasing short-term gratification because you're playing a longer game. Each disciplined action becomes a seed planted in the soil of your future. Eventually, those seeds bloom into results that others call luck. But you'll know they were built on daily discipline. Ultimately, discipline is the foundation of freedom. It gives you control over your actions, your outcomes, and your destiny. Without discipline, reactively, at the mercy of moods, habits, and circumstances. With it, you become proactive, deliberate, directed, and unstoppable. Discipline is not about suppressing your desires, it's about aligning them. Teaches you that the greatest satisfaction comes not from doing whatever you want, but from doing what will serve you best. Over time, this creates peace. The peace of knowing you are steering your own ship. You can't control the waves of life, but through discipline, can control your sail. So, as you reflect on your journey, remember this: motivation is a spark, but discipline is the fire, the quiet force that turns effort into excellence and dreams into reality. Every time you choose action over excuse, you strengthen that fire. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you fan the flame. And one day, you'll look back and realize that everything you've built, every habit, every achievement, every transformation, was born from the steady heat of discipline. It may not always feel exciting, but it is always powerful. Discipline is not something you're born with. It's something you build, one decision at a time. And when you master it, there's nothing, truly nothing, you cannot create, become, or achieve. Focus is the art of filtering the noise of the world so you can hear the sound of your own progress. The ability to channel all your energy into one meaningful direction while everything else competes for your attention. In an age of constant distraction, focus has become one of the rarest and most valuable skills, a kind of superpower that separates those who drift from those who achieve. The truth is, success is not about doing more, it's about doing what matters most, repeatedly, without being pulled off course. Focus gives your small wins direction, turning scattered effort into compounded momentum. Without it, energy leaks through 1,000 tiny distractions, leaving you busy but not productive, but not advancing. Focus is what transforms effort into excellence. It is the lens that magnifies your small actions until they become powerful enough to shape your future. To cultivate focus, you must first understand that attention is a currency, and every day, countless forces are trying to spend it for you. From the buzzing of notifications to the endless scroll of digital feeds, modern life is a battlefield for your mind. The challenge isn't lack of potential, divided attention. The mind that tries to chase everything catches nothing. Focus is the discipline of choosing what to ignore. The first truth about focus is that it begins with clarity. You cannot focus on what you haven't defined. Most people struggle not because they lack ability, but because they don't know exactly where they're going. Their goals are vague, priorities fuzzy, and their direction uncertain. Clarity gives focus its target. It's like aiming an arrow. If you don't know the bullseye, shot feels wasted. To build focus, you must decide what matters most. Define your purpose, your vision, and your non-negotiables. When you're clear on what truly matters, distractions lose power. Every decision becomes simpler if it aligns. You say yes. If it doesn't, you say no. Clarity is the compass that prevents you from being swept away by every new idea or impulse. The human mind is incredibly powerful when directed, incredibly wasteful when scattered. Think of the sun. Its light warms the earth, but when concentrated through a lens, it can ignite fire. Your focus works the same way. When you channel your mental energy instead of dispersing it, you gain intensity. And intensity creates breakthroughs. Focus is not just about what you pay attention to, it's about what you deliberately exclude. In a world obsessed with multitasking, focus is revolutionary. Multitasking feels productive, but it's an illusion. The mind cannot give full attention to two things at once. Each switch between tasks drains energy, fragments thought, and weakens performance. Focus demands single tasking, full presence with one thing at a time. Whether it's writing, learning, working, or even resting, that moment your undivided attention. Depth is where excellence lives. Shallow effort produces shallow results. Deep effort creates mastery. When you learn to stay with one task long enough to cross the threshold from effort to immersion, you enter flow. That state where time disappears, creativity expands and your work feels effortless. Flow is not accidental, it's built through focus. Yet, maintaining focus requires protection. Distraction has a cost, not just in time, but in momentum. When your attention is interrupted, it can take minutes or even hours to return to full depth. That's why the most successful people guard their focus fiercely. They design environments that minimize friction, quiet spaces, phone-free zones, time-blocked schedules. They treat focus as sacred time, not optional luxury. You cannot expect your mind to stay sharp in a chaotic environment. Focus flourishes in structure. Every notification you silence, recommitment you decline, every boundary you enforce is a statement that your attention is valuable. The world will always tempt you with urgency. Focus demands that you prioritize importance. Don't mistake motion for progress, and don't let noise drown out your inner signal. Focus also requires training, like a muscle. In a world of constant novelty, our attention spans have been shortened by design. We crave stimulation, and when something feels slow, we reach for distraction. But you can rebuild your capacity for focus through deliberate practice. Start small, spend 10 minutes each day fully absorbed in one task without checking your phone or switching context. Then expand that window over time. You'll notice something fascinating. The more you focus, the easier it becomes. Your brain adapts, your patience grows, and your thinking deepens. You'll find that focus is less about effort and more about state. A state you can enter with intention. You'll begin to crave the calm that focus brings, the quiet satisfaction of doing one thing well. In a noisy world, that feeling is priceless. Focus isn't only mental, it's emotional. To focus deeply, you must be willing to let go of FOMO, the fear of missing out. You must accept that by choosing one thing, you are temporarily closing the door on others. That's the price of excellence trade-offs. You can't master everything at once. You can't chase every opportunity. You can't grow meaningfully if you refuse to commit. Focus requires the courage to say no, not just to bad options, but sometimes to good ones. Because good can be the enemy of great. Every yes you give dilutes your energy. Every distraction, even if it's pleasant, steals time from what truly matters. The disciplined mind doesn't see focus as loss, it sees it as investment. Every hour spent deeply engaged in your craft compounds like interest. The longer you stay concentrated, the greater your return. Focus also teaches you to be fully present in life, not just in work. When you're with people, when you rest, rest completely. When you learn, learn wholeheartedly. Modern life has blurred the boundaries between activities. We work while eating, scroll while resting, and think about tomorrow while living today. The result is constant partial attention, where you're everywhere but nowhere at once. Focus restores wholeness. It teaches you that quality of presence is more powerful than quantity of time. 10 minutes of true presence with someone you love means more than an hour of distracted half-attention. The same principle applies to self-growth. Depth beats duration every time. Another truth about focus is that it amplifies meaning. When you give your full attention to something, you connect with it deeply. Your work becomes not just a task, but an expression. Your relationships become richer, your creativity more alive. Focus brings you into contact with the essence of experience, turns ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. People often chase happiness through novelty, but focus reveals that fulfillment comes from depth, variety. When you pour yourself completely into one thing, you feel alive because you're no longer fragmented. Focus integrates the mind, body, spirit into one powerful stream of intention. Yet focus, like all powerful tools, must be directed wisely. You can focus intensely on the wrong things and end up climbing the wrong mountain faster. That's why reflection must walk hand in hand with focus. Time regularly to step back and ask, or am I focusing on what truly matters? Focus without reflection becomes tunnel vision. Reflection without focus becomes drifting. The balance of both creates alignment. Action guided by awareness. Alignment ensures that your effort builds toward your purpose instead of away from it. Focus also liberates you from the trap of comparison. When your mind is scattered, you constantly glance sideways, measuring yourself against others. But when you're deeply absorbed in your own path, comparison fades. You no longer care who's ahead or behind because you're immersed in your own process. Focus quiets envy by replacing it with engagement. Stop chasing validation and start chasing mastery. Every day becomes a practice, not a performance. The more you focus inward, on your effort, growth, your purpose, the more peace you find. The beauty of focus is that it compounds invisibly. Each day of deep attention builds skill, clarity, and momentum. You might not see immediate results, but over time, your work begins to carry a different weight. People feel it. The precision, thoughtfulness, the excellence that only focus can produce. While others spread their energy thin, you're building depth that lasts. Focused effort leaves fingerprints of quality that scattered energy never can. It's what makes your work timeless instead of temporary. In the end, focus is love, love expressed as attention. Whatever you give your focus to, you feed. Focus on fear and it grows. Focus on gratitude and it multiplies. Focus on your goals and they move closer. The secret of all achievement is the same: energy flows where attention goes. Protect your attention like the treasure it is, because once it's gone, you can never get it back. Every day, wake up with a finite amount of focus. Spend it wisely. Direct it toward what builds you, not what drains you. So as you move forward, remember, focus is the gateway to greatness. It turns scattered motion into powerful movement. It is not found, it is trained. And when you master it, begins to change in ways that feel almost magical. Noise fades. Clarity sharpens. Progress accelerates. You begin to realize that success was never about doing everything. It was about doing the right things fully, deeply, and with unwavering presence. Focus turns small wins into great ones, not by adding more effort, but by aligning every ounce of effort you already have in the direction that truly matters. That is how focus compounds, quietly, powerfully, and relentlessly, until the extraordinary becomes inevitable. Resilience is the quiet strength that allows you to rise after every fall, the internal elasticity that bends but never breaks, the invisible armor that shields your dreams from the storms of life. It is not about never failing, it is about never staying down. Resilience is the heartbeat of perseverance, the foundation upon which consistency and focus all stand. Because no matter how committed, disciplined, or motivated you are, life will test you. There will be setbacks, delays, rejections, and disappointments. There will be days when the path feels too steep, when progress seems invisible, when quitting looks easier than continuing. But resilience whispers, "Not yet." It reminds you that the story isn't over just because one chapter hurts. Every great achievement in history was built by resilient souls. People who turned their pain into purpose, their failures into fuel, their scars into strength. They understood a truth: most overlooked growth isn't found in comfort, it's forged in struggle. Resilience is not given, grown. One challenge, one recovery, one comeback at a time. To be resilient doesn't mean to be unshaken by hardship, means to feel everything: the fear, the disappointment, the fatigue, and still keep moving forward. It means learning to bend without breaking, to adapt without losing direction. Like a tree that sways in the wind but keeps its roots deep in the soil, resilience is about flexibility anchored by conviction. The rigid mind shatters under pressure, but the resilient mind flows with it, adjusting, recalibrating, and finding strength in motion. When life changes, as it always does, resilience turns obstacles into opportunities for transformation. The storm doesn't destroy the resilient, it shapes them. Each trial becomes a teacher, each failure a form of feedback. That's why resilient people don't fear difficulty. They expect it, prepare for it, and grow through it. Resilience begins with perspective. The way you interpret challenges determines how you experience them. When something goes wrong, most people see an ending. The resilient see a lesson. Ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They ask, "What is this teaching me?" That shift in mindset is everything. Suffering into strength, confusion into clarity, and setbacks into stepping stones. Perspective is the lens that turns pain into power. Every challenge contains a gift, not a pleasant one, but a powerful one. It reveals what you're made of, where your limits lie, and how much more you can grow. Without struggle, strength stays dormant. It's only when you're tested that you discover your true potential. Resilience is built in the arena, not in comfort. It's the muscle developed through pressure, repetition, and recovery. But resilience is not only about endurance. It's also about recovery. The strongest people are not those who never fall, but those who recover quickly. Life will knock you down, that's inevitable. The question is not whether you'll stumble, but how long you'll stay there. Resilient people don't dwell in defeat. They extract the lesson and rise again. They understand that every failure carries feedback. Setback contains seeds of growth. The key is to keep moving. Even if the steps are small, even if the direction feels uncertain. Momentum, once regained, rebuilds confidence, and confidence fuels resilience further, creating a loop of renewal that strengthens over time. Resilience is deeply connected to emotional regulation, the ability to manage your feelings without being ruled by them. Pain, anger, and frustration are natural responses to difficulty, but they can either destroy you or drive you depending on how you handle them. The resilient person doesn't suppress emotions, they observe them. They breathe through discomfort, give space to grief, and then choose response over reaction. This emotional awareness is what keeps them steady. They don't let temporary emotions create permanent decisions. They allow time and reflection to guide their actions. Resilience is emotional maturity in motion. The art of staying calm within chaos. One of the most powerful truths about resilience is that it grows from purpose. When your why is strong enough, you can survive almost any how. Purpose gives pain a reason, and reason gives you strength. Without a clear purpose, obstacles feel meaningless. They become milestones. The resilient person doesn't endure hardship for hardship's sake. They endure because something greater calls them forward. That sense of mission, deep internal compass, turns struggle into service. Every difficulty becomes proof of dedication. So, if you want to build resilience, anchor yourself in purpose. Know why you're doing what you're doing, and remind yourself of it when times get tough. Purpose transforms pain into progress. Resilience also thrives on community. Strength is built individually but sustained collectively. Having people who believe in you, who remind you of your worth when you forget, who hold space for your struggle without judgment. That's fuel for resilience. The myth of the self-made individual ignores the truth that even the strongest need support. Resilience is not isolation, it's connection. When you share your pain, it doesn't divide. It multiplies understanding. The most resilient people seek help not because they are weak, but because they are wise enough to know they can't do everything alone. Surround yourself with those who remind you of your strength when you doubt it. Find that recovery happens faster. There's also a quiet side to resilience, the ability to rest. The world glorifies relentless hustle. Resilience knows that rest is not weakness, it's repair. You can't sustain strength without recovery. Burnout is not a badge of honor, a warning sign. Resilient people understand that rest is part of the process. That pausing to breathe doesn't mean you've stopped progressing. Pause that prepares you for the next push. Balance is not a luxury, it's a strategy. To sustain resilience, you must know when to fight and when to heal. Resilience transforms how you relate to failure. Most people fear failure as final. Resilient people see it as feedback. They don't tie their worth to their results. Failure doesn't define them, it refines them. They extract lessons, adjustments, and try again. Failure, to them, is not a wall. It's a mirror showing what needs to be improved. That's why resilient people rarely stay down for long. Their self-worth isn't fragile, it's grounded in growth. They measure success not by perfection, but by persistence. Every setback becomes a spark for reinvention. Resilience also means cultivating optimism, not blind positivity, but realistic hope. It's the ability to see possibilities even in pain, believe that the future can be better than the present, and that your actions can make it so. Optimism gives resilience direction, keeps you from despair when results are delayed. The resilient mind says, "This too shall pass," not as an escape from pain but as a recognition of impermanence. Everything, joy, pain, success, failure, is temporary. Resilience thrives in that truth. You stop clinging to comfort and start flowing with change. At its core, resilience is self-trust. It's the unshakable belief that no matter what happens, you will find a way. That belief doesn't come from arrogance, but from evidence. The memory of every time you've survived something you thought you couldn't. Every hardship you've overcome has left a residue of strength within you. Resilience is remembering your own power when fear tries to make you forget. Looking at the mountain ahead and saying, "I've climbed before, I'll climb again." You may not control what life throws at you, always control your response, and that control is where your power lies. Resilience doesn't remove pain, it redeems it. It doesn't erase hardship, it transforms it into meaning. When you look back on your life, you'll realize that the moments you thought would break you were the ones that built you. Each scar will tell a story, not of defeat, but of endurance. Every comeback will remind you that resilience isn't about bouncing back to who you were. It's about bouncing forward into who you're becoming, because every time you rise, you don't return as the same person. You return wiser, tougher, and more compassionate. So, as you continue your journey of small wins and compounding growth, remember this: resilience is not optional. It's essential. Without it, consistency crumbles at the first sign of difficulty. With it, you become unstoppable. Life will never be free of challenges. Resilience ensures that no challenge will ever own you. It teaches you to turn adversity into advantage, pain into progress, and loss into learning. You are stronger than your circumstances, deeper than your setbacks, and more capable than your doubts suggest. Resilience is your reminder. When you master it, no obstacle can stop the compounding power of your small, steady, unstoppable wins. Momentum is the invisible force that carries you from one small win to the next, the energy that transforms effort into acceleration, consistency into unstoppable progress. It is the bridge between discipline and destiny, the compound interest of persistence. Momentum is not built overnight, but once it's created, it can move mountains. It begins quietly. One small action, one repeated behavior, one day of showing up, and before you realize it, the effort that once felt heavy becomes fluid. The tasks that once demanded willpower become habit, and progress starts to feel natural. Momentum is the reward of patience and the fruit of repetition. It's what separates those who start from those who finish, those who try from those who triumph. The beauty of momentum is that it makes success self-sustaining. Once you start moving forward, the motion itself becomes your motivation. But the secret lies in understanding that momentum doesn't come from massive leaps. It comes from the rhythm of small, consistent steps, done with focus, fueled by resilience, and guided by purpose. To build momentum, you must first overcome inertia, the resistance that keeps you stuck at the starting line. The hardest part of any journey is beginning. The first workout after months of rest, the first page of a book you've been meaning to write, conversation you've avoided. That initial action always feels the heaviest. But once you start, something changes. Energy breeds energy. Progress breeds more progress. The moment you take that first small step, you interrupt the cycle of procrastination and replace it with the cycle of motion. Inertia hates action, but once action begins, it becomes easier to continue. This is why small wins matter so much. They break the stillness of hesitation and generate the spark that sets everything in motion. A single step might feel insignificant, but it's the seed of momentum. And if you nurture it with consistency, it grows into unstoppable forward movement. Momentum thrives on consistency because consistency creates predictability, and predictability breeds confidence. When you show up every day, even when you don't feel like it, you're building trust with yourself. You're proving that your word means something. Your commitment is stronger than your comfort. Every small action, repeated, strengthens your self-belief. And self-belief is the engine of momentum. It's what allows you to push through resistance, to keep going when results are delayed. Trust that your efforts are compounding even when they're invisible. Momentum doesn't demand perfection. It demands persistence. It doesn't ask you to move fast. It asks you to keep moving. Because once the wheel starts turning, each rotation gets easier. What was once difficult becomes doable. What was once uphill becomes forward flow. But momentum is fragile in its early stages. The same way a rolling ball can stop if friction increases, your progress can stall if distractions, doubt, or inconsistency creep in. Protecting momentum means guarding your environment, your habits, and your focus. The temptation to overextend yourself, doing too much too soon, burns energy and breaks rhythm. Instead, think of momentum like a fire. You don't start a bonfire with a single spark. You nurture it, feed it steadily, protect it from the wind until it grows strong enough to sustain itself. Each small action is fuel. Each completed task is oxygen. Each moment of follow-through strengthens the flame. The secret is to keep feeding the fire, especially when the heat feels low. Momentum is not about intensity, it's about continuity. Momentum also lives in your mindset. To maintain it, you must focus on progress, not perfection. Perfectionist mindset kills momentum because it demands flawless execution before movement begins. But perfection is paralysis disguised as productivity. The resilient, momentum-driven person embraces imperfection as part of growth. They understand that forward is better than flawless. Imperfect step forward creates data, experience, and feedback, all of which refine your process. The more you move, the more you learn. The more you learn, the better you move. Momentum transforms mistakes into momentum fuel because it keeps you evolving. As long as you're moving, imperfectly, you're compounding progress. Another truth about momentum is that it feeds on emotion, specifically, the emotion of progress. When you see evidence of improvement, no matter how small, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical of motivation and reward. That feeling of satisfaction reinforces behavior, making you want to repeat it. This is why celebrating small wins is not optional, it's essential. Each celebration strengthens the feedback loop between effort and reward. It keeps your energy high and your motivation alive. Momentum is emotional as much as it is physical. You can't force it with logic alone, you must nurture it with emotion. Feel proud of your progress, no matter how humble it seems. Because what starts as tiny sparks of pride eventually ignite a blazing drive to keep going. Momentum doesn't just move you forward. It transforms your identity. The more consistently you act in alignment with your goals, the more you start to see yourself as the kind of person who follows through. Identity always precedes behavior. When you see yourself as disciplined, consistent, and capable, your actions begin to match that belief automatically. You no longer have to push yourself with external motivation. Momentum pulls you with internal identity. You stop saying, "I'm trying to be productive," and start saying, I am a productive person. That shift, subtle, is revolutionary. It removes friction from progress and replaces it with flow. The stronger your identity alignment, the easier it becomes to sustain momentum even through setbacks. Momentum is not linear. There will be plateaus, slow phases, and even regressions. Momentum ebbs and flows just like tides. What matters most is not avoiding slowdowns but responding to them wisely. When momentum dips, panic, recalibrate, reconnect to your why. Simplify your process. Return to the basics that built your initial progress. Often, people lose momentum not because they lose ability, but because they lose awareness. They stop noticing the small habits that once kept them grounded. The solution isn't to do more, it's to refocus on what works. Momentum thrives in simplicity. When you feel stuck, don't chase complexity. Return to clarity. Another important truth is that momentum multiplies across areas of your life. Progress in one domain creates energy that spills into others. When you build momentum in your fitness, confidence rises, and that confidence fuels your work, your relationships, and your creativity. Success is holistic because energy is transferable. That's why small wins in one area matter so much. They create a ripple effect that transforms everything they touch. Momentum doesn't stay confined. It expands. That's how people go from small daily habits to total life transformation. They start with one small victory, then another, and soon the momentum from those victories begins to redefine what they believe is possible. Momentum also requires letting go of the past. You can't move forward while dragging the weight of old failures, regrets, or disappointments. Every time you replay what went wrong, you anchor yourself in stillness. Momentum requires emotional lightness, the ability to learn from the past without living in it. Forgive yourself for past inconsistency. Let go of guilt for every time you stopped. What matters is that you start again. Every day is a reset button, a fresh opportunity to rebuild momentum. The past is not your prison, it's your preparation. The resilient don't dwell on what they lost. They focus on what they can create now. That's the mindset that keeps the wheels of progress turning. Momentum thrives in alignment with purpose. When your actions align with your values, you feel energized rather than drained. That alignment creates emotional harmony, a sense that you're moving in the right direction. Without purpose, momentum feels like motion without meaning, exhausting rather than empowering. But when purpose and progress unite, momentum becomes magnetic. Wake up with direction. Your energy flows naturally. Even when challenges arise, your purpose anchors you, keeping the motion alive. This is why knowing your why is not a motivational cliché. It's a practical necessity for sustaining long-term momentum. Sustaining momentum also means embracing adaptability. Rigid plans often break under change, but flexible systems bend and continue moving. Life will never go exactly as you expect. Projects will stall, people will disappoint, circumstances will shift. But the adaptable mind doesn't stop. Adaptability keeps momentum alive when the path changes. The goal remains, but the route adjusts. Those who can adapt while staying consistent are the ones who turn temporary obstacles into detours, not dead ends. Momentum rewards flexibility because flexibility ensures continuity. Ultimately, momentum is not just a principle of physics. It's a philosophy of life. It teaches that greatness isn't built through one massive effort, but through 1,000 small, consistent movements that gather power over time. It teaches that starting small is not a weakness but a strategy. It teaches that action precedes motivation, not the other way around. Every day you show up, you're not just making progress, You're reinforcing motion, adding one more link to the chain of compounding effort that will eventually pull you toward your vision. And here lies the deepest truth. Momentum never truly disappears, it just waits for you to restart it. Even when you've paused, even when you've stumbled, the potential for motion remains. The habits you've built, the strength you've cultivated, the lessons you've learned, they're still within you. All it takes to reignite the flow is one small step, one decision to begin again. Momentum forgives pauses, it rewards returns. Because progress is not about how many times you stop, it's about how many times you start again. So, as this chapter closes, your greatest power lies not in explosive effort, but in sustained movement. Momentum is the magic that transforms slow beginnings into unstoppable growth. Protect it. Nurture it. Trust it. Because once momentum takes hold, small wins start compounding into something extraordinary. A life that moves forward with purpose, grace, and unstoppable force. When that happens, success is no longer a matter of if. It becomes a matter of when.